to Daily Dispatch powered by HSBC. I am Mansi Fadnis and here's our news roundup for the day. Registrations for the FinTech Hackathon 2022, organized by Niti Aayog in partnership with PhonePe and Setu, closed yesterday. Hackathons promote multidisciplinary collaboration and shorter, quicker cycles of innovation that further solve rapidly changing consumer needs. The last day to submit entries is tomorrow, February 25, 2022. Visit the Niti Aayog FinTech Open Month website for more details. Over to Priya.
A very warm welcome to Daily Dispatch powered by HSBC. I'm Priya Sheth, and joining me on this very interesting conversation is a host of experts in the rollup space, and it's a space that's gaining a huge amount of prominence, specifically over the last couple of months. Join me in welcoming to the panel. We have Davandeep Soni from GlobalBees, we have Nitin Agarwal from UpScalio, and we have Utsav Agarwal from Evenflow. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today. I want to begin with you, Davandeep, to talk a little bit about the rollup space. Last couple of months have been clearly the months of the roll-up, and we're seeing so much activity happen across the board. Tell us a little bit about how your experience has been.
First of all, thanks for having me here, Priya. So yeah, it's been quite a frenzy for I think all of us, and we keep discussing how come everyone came with this roll-up idea in India simultaneously. I think all of us incorporated more or less in the same 3 to 4 month period. Right, which is quite uncanny. But what that seems to speak about is this was an idea for which the time had come in India. And it's not the first time, we started creating a house of brands in India. That concept has existed in India, not just by P&G and Unilever, but also the likes of Tata, which is a branded house rather. But yeah, that accumulating wide number of categories under a single umbrella is something which existed in India for a pretty long time. What happened in the last, I would say 18 months before we all started, was a lot of the different parts of the value chain came together and became modularized, right? As long as the entrepreneur could come up with a novel idea and find a product or create a brand which resonates with the consumer, right from everything of building a website to shipping to tracking to packaging, everything became modularized to a large extent. A lot of the brand playbooks for the digital realm got created in the last 2 to 3 years, right? So those playbooks started maturing and existing in the market. With all the difficult parts of the problem being solved, I think there was a flurry of activity in D2C brands being created, and really gaining a lot of momentum. So I think that's one of the reasons why all these different companies, all of us, we figure out there is now a space for the next layer of creating a digital startup. So I think that's what happened. And obviously, when an idea whose time has come, right? I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the messaging wars, right? When I was with Line, I've been fortunate to be part of the wallet wars with Mobility. So I mean, this is a time when I would say the D2C war has just started, right? And I won't term it so much as a war, but because this is a very early days where there's a lot of proliferation happening. It's not a very simple winner-take-all approach for a messaging or a wallet. Consumers want choice, right? So I think that's the space that we are all in, and we're trying to build up our portfolios right in the middle of that.
Right, as Davandeep said, it's really cool and strange both that so many roll-up firms have come into India at this point in time. But doesn't that make it more challenging then? Because with valuations at this point in time, won't valuations be a sort of concern out there, Nitin?
So I think one of the big reasons why you see so many roll-up firms, and I also believe there's room for more, is because now there's so many exciting businesses out there which have hit the right threshold, at which point a roll-up could look at them, bring them in-house and scale them. And I think often we think of these companies competing with each other, We often compete in acquisitions, but if you look at the portfolio so far, I think there's very little competition in the portfolio so far. And also, some of the roll-ups have well carved out their, shall I say, category niches. For example, Mensa Goat are doing more fashion versus others. So which means this is going to be clear focus and room for different roll-ups to acquire and scale different brands. Also, see something interesting which is happening is, of course, the demonetization in COVID, continued COVID waves. E-commerce sales have been accelerating. So it's a mature market with accelerating sales, and consumer demand has opened up in terms of wanting new products and new brands, right? So therefore, you see more micro segments, more micro niches coming up in every product category. And people are sitting at home, so they're looking to redo their homes, make the quality of their homes much better, and that's how so the utility categories are also in the fore as compared to fashion electronics, which has been driving e-commerce in India for the last decade. So all in all, I think it throws up a lot of opportunity, both for these exciting entrepreneurs who built very attractive businesses, and for roll-ups like us to go ahead, acquire them, and create meaningful value for everyone in the ecosystem.
Right. Thanks for that, Nitin. I want to come to you, sir, to talk a little bit about whether 2022 is going to be the year of roll-ups, or are we entering into what could perhaps be a decade of roll-ups?
I see this as at least a 5 to 10 year trend, if not longer. I think 2022 is just the start. It's just the icing on the cake. And that's when people are taking notice. But for any ecosystem to develop and form takes 2 to 3 years. Like Daman said, that he's been part of the wallet war. I've been part of the ride sharing wars and food delivery wars. And those took about 2 or 3 years to evolve in the Indian ecosystem before ride sharing and booking a cab via mobile app became a household term. Similarly, I think roll-ups and D2C brands have seen their time come over the last 2 years, and the roll-ups are now kind of capitalizing on that, going out and buying assets, brands that are available, that are facing challenges to scale rapidly. And 2022 is just a start. It's not going to be defined as the year. Maybe that's 23 or 24 when that's when the movie climaxes.
Right. Interesting perspectives out there. Damandeep, I want to come to you to talk a little bit about what the strategy is going to be in 2022. What would be the key pillars or the key focus areas for you going forward?
Okay, so while we're trying to navigate this space at a very rapid pace, I think building our playbooks is something that's going to take a lot of precedence, right? So on one side, we are acquiring brands, bringing them onto the platform. On the other side, we are, we have to enhance our playbooks, develop our playbooks to grow them, identify all the levers, whether it's new marketplaces, new countries, enhance the brand proposition, increase the number of SKUs. So we're kind of firing on all fronts. All this while we are also building up our teams, right? Fortunately, we're at a time in the industry wherein there is a lot of talent around who have helped grown brands, across categories, and there's also a lot of talent in the marketplaces also, right? Who's seen a lot of challenges that large companies face while growing a category. So these are different areas in which we are concentrating on. So if you ask me, the one particular area that we're looking at, I would say it's the build, right? It's the company build that we're looking at. So, I mean, to answer your earlier question, this is just the start for us. So this is the formative year for us. Okay, this is the year where we are focusing on build. And I think over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see how each of us, matures, what trajectory we take, what our portfolios finally end up being. So to answer your earlier question, this is just the start for us. Over the next 4 to 5 years, we'll figure out how things are.
Right. Thanks for that, Damandeep. Nitin, I want to talk a little bit about the challenges in the space because, while we are seeing a lot of activity also in the space, I believe that there will also be some challenges when it comes to, acquisitions and also scaling up companies going forward. So tell us a little bit about what kind of acquisitions are you seeing in the practical world out there?
So I would say on the acquisition front, we've been pleasantly surprised. I mean, when we started this, I felt it's going to be much harder to be able to convince these entrepreneurs to come, join a roll-up because this was a very nascent sort of industry in India. Not many people are aware about the model and what will happen with the brands. But I think there's been very fair receptiveness on the side of these entrepreneurs in terms of challenges which are facing their brands. And they also very quickly turned around and said, okay, we understand the value a roll-up could bring and the trajectory change which a roll-up could bring. So I think acquisition road so far has been fairly smooth. Now it comes to integrations and growth of businesses, which is the phase today, which is where we are today. And to Zamandeep, I think that's a young leg within this journey, which will be the main focus for the next 1 to 2 years. How we refine our playbook to accelerate growth for these brands. And for each brand in its own journey, challenges are a bit different, right? So how do we create strong processes internally with which we can do a bit of a cookie cutter, but also a specialized approach for every single brand in the house to make sure it gets the growth and the attention it deserves. I think that's something which you're working on. Another key aspect is getting and building talent. These are very unique roles. And I often tell candidates that the roles which you have are one of the most empowered roles in the industry. So wherein you have to behave like an entrepreneur, but you also have the all the goodness of a large company in terms of processes, in terms of functional expertise, in terms of capital availability, etc. Right? So you have to match the process-driven nature and also the thrift and also the agility of an entrepreneur. So I think a lot of that building blocks is also something which will play out in the next 6 months to a year. And I think that will kind of define how successful different brands become in different roll-ups houses. So I would say that's where we are headed, and I believe that kind of speaks for most of the roll-ups in the country.
Right. I'd like to bring you in both Utsav and Damandeep on the question where you're talking about money and investment, because really money is the raw material for you out here when it comes to going ahead and acquiring companies. So tell us a little bit about how difficult or easy has it been to raise this kind of money to be investing into companies out there. Let's go with you, Utsav.
Okay, so it's been for us. There have been headwinds and tailwinds both at the same time. Headwinds because of the number of players in the market, but also, as we like to say, this is not a duopoly space where 2 or 3 players takes everything. It's going to be just like you have multiple FMCG companies, you will have multiple conglomerates of digital first brands. And yes, capital is going to be a big function of how we perform. I think there are a couple of players that have done exceptionally well. One is on the call right now. They've turned into a unicorn in the last 6 to 8 months. But considering the private and the public markets today, it's been relatively easier than what it would have been about 5 to 6 years back. There's a lot of liquidity in the market. And if you're able to acquire the right brands and actually show the numbers in terms of growth and integrating them, capital is available domestically and internationally.
Right. Damandeep, coming to you to talk a little bit about the same thing in terms of how difficult or easy is it to raise money at this point in time to be investing into other firms. And I also wanted to understand down the line, do you think that once you generate returns from the firms that you've invested in, will you be deploying that same amount of money? Or will that get easier when it comes to raising funds and further deploying it into other firms going forward?
Let me give you a paradigm here. All of us on this call are acquiring companies which are generating some amount of profit. right? And that is very different from what we see in digital services startups, right? Where the promise of profitability is at a later point in time, right? So a lot of the businesses that we've acquired are generating cash even today, right? And when we say it's always a choice of whether we want to, deploy that cash for growth or whether we're going to sit on that and do something else with it. I think we are always going to be growth focused, at least for the next decade, right? So while we look at external sources for funding, but we also have some of the best source of funding, which is customer payments, right? And I think that's going to help our business model uh, grow fast enough to make a significant impact. In terms of fundraising, like my colleague said, that's a function of how we perform, right? If you're not able to deliver growth, yeah, it's going to be tough. But if we are showing significant growth, and I think there are ample levers in the companies that we are looking at, right? Some of them are not present on one of the key marketplaces at all. So just switching that on, brings us a growth. Some of them we see that there's a huge demand for them in a global market. Just switching that on, starts driving growth. So there are these significant levers that we see. As long as we can tap into the levers and drive growth, I think capital raising should not be a problem. We are today more focused, and what keeps us awake at night is how can we grow faster? And we are in a business wherein we cannot say that we're going to change the economics entirely. We're going to spend 10x on marketing because the cost of goods sold is going to be exactly what it is, right? The MRP cannot be changed to the selling price cannot be changed to 10x because it's a consumer product. So how do we do this smartly and bring in the 10x growth?
Right. A final question to you, Nitin. Just for the benefit of our viewers out there, if I'm a company and I'm exploring opportunity with a private equity and a roll-up, which should I choose? What are the pros and cons of the two?
Yeah. So I think with a quality VC or a PE, what you get, of course, is a lot of capital and I would say some guidance. With a roll-up, what you get is not just capital, but both high quality talent, which rolls up their sleeves, works on your brand, and tons of functional expertise on every area. And as brands scale, they need that functional expertise in terms of doing better. Whether it's how do you do your packaging, how do you do your brand promotions, how do you craft a storytelling master, which increases intrigue for people to try out your brands, how to increase your distribution, how to crack supply chain. All of these are questions which entrepreneurs start grappling with as they start tasting scale, and which is where being in a roll-up house of brands is really beneficial. So I believe it's a much faster growth path and a much surer growth path, and with less, shall I say, hard work on the side of entrepreneurs to come up and partner with roll-ups versus say VCs and PEs. Having said that, I'm sure there are some certain confident entrepreneurs who believe they can ride it out on their own, and they would always choose, say, private money, VC money over a roll-up sort of a partnership. So to each its own.
Right. So Nitin's made a good sales pitch out there for all the startups listening to us right now. Final question for you, Uttam, to talk a little bit about what your plan is for the coming calendar year. How many acquisitions in the bag?
So we've announced 7, we've done 10, and we'll be announcing the rest 3 over the next 2 or 3 months. For this calendar year, we're looking to do another 12 to 15, and the focus is going to move away from acquisitions to more growth, platform expansion, and internationalization. I think that's where the secret sauce is. I think all of us would agree on the call out here that acquisition has been the relatively easier part of the game, which we thought was going to be hard when we started off back in March, April, May. As we have bought these brands, integrating them seamlessly and taking over the revenue and scaling them is now becomes the next problem to solve. And that's going to be our focus as well in 2022.
All right. On that note, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thanks so much for your valuable insights on the whole roll-up space.